After 5 years now of making videos here on YouTube about the Seattle area and helping people relocate to this area when they're looking to buy a home, dozens and dozens of families and individuals that I've helped relocate here to the Seattle area, there are a handful of mistakes that I consistently see people make in their preparation for a move over here. So today, I want to talk about those mistakes so you can avoid them. All right, mistake number one I see very often is not considering the commute times when trying to figure out where you want to live. Now, there are a couple different types of individuals and families that are moving over here. Some of you may not be dependent on a commute to a job, and you may be able to expand your search in where you live far outside of the Seattle area. However, there is a large percentage of people moving over here that do have to be in office in work. That might be right in Seattle, might be right in Bellevue, or one of the outlying immediate suburbs to those areas that have some of the highest paying jobs in the country. Now, because of that, if you're somebody that has to be in office 5 days a week or maybe 2 or 3 days a week, you have to be very, very careful about how far outside of those areas you live. It's very tempting to continue to go further north or further south outside of those areas to get a lot more home for your money, because those home prices really start to break when you go further north and further south. However, it's going to come at a cost, and that cost is going to be very long commute times. Now, if you're looking at a map, you might look at a location, say a Snohomish or a Lake Stevens, and say, oh, that's about 30 miles from Seattle or Bellevue. That's totally doable. I can drive that far every day into office. What you need to know is that 30 miles could be an hour to an hour and a half commute each way in rush hour times. And so I often see people in their preparation coming over here and having a list of places they want to live, knowing that they have to commute to Seattle or Bellevue for work, and then they get over here and don't realize how far that actually feels. What I always recommend people do is when you're over here making your initial visits and trying to figure out those locations where you want to narrow down for your home search, make sure you're here on a weekday and do that rush hour drive on your visit over here. So if you're working in Seattle or Bellevue and you've got some ideas of areas you might want to live up north, like maybe a Lake Stevens or a Snohomish, go up there that morning or stay up there in a hotel or an Airbnb and make that drive down to where your job would be at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning and see what that commute is going to be like. Or in the afternoon, going from Seattle or Bellevue back up to that location at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You really need to see that commute firsthand to make sure it's something you're willing to deal with on a daily basis. Oftentimes when people take this strategy, they'll sometimes change their mind on, okay, I really can't go that far. I'm not willing to deal with this every single day. Let's adjust our search and adjust the locations we're looking at. And this will really help make sure you end up in a location that you're not going to regret after purchasing that house. Mistake number two I see is people underestimating the cost of housing over here. Now you might think, oh, how do you do that? We all know Seattle's really expensive. It's a major West Coast city. Those home prices are very high, and everybody knows that going in. What I will say, and this also ties to the commute thing, is if you are somebody that has to be located a bit more central for your job, Seattle, Bellevue, immediate surrounding suburbs right there, central Seattle metropolitan, it can become quite difficult to find a nice home under $1 million. And when I talk about a home, I'm talking about a single family home. If you're somebody looking at townhomes and condos, you're certainly going to have a number of great options under that $1 million price point. But if you're looking for a single family residential home, trying to find something that's ultra commutable to those central locations can be quite difficult at this point, getting something under $1 million. Now, that median home price for the entire Seattle metropolitan area is currently $800,000. Now, the entire Seattle metropolitan area is 3 counties. That's King, Snohomish, and Pierce counties. So again, those that work remote, maybe those that are moving over here because you're retired, you have so much more flexibility where you can go to the northern or southern ends of that metropolitan area and certainly find a lot more homes closer to that $750,000 to $900,000 price point. But for those that need to be more central, it becomes quite difficult, like I said, to find anything under $1 million. So again, you have to be prepared for that, of deciding, hey, I have to be central because of my job and my budget is $900,000 to $1 million, deciding how far you're willing to go. And again, the commute times play into that, and you definitely need to research that. And also deciding if a single family residential home is of the utmost importance, if a townhome is a willing trade-off to be closer to your job, and really figuring that out. Now, like I said, I help people relocate here to the Seattle area all the time. And so that's often something we talk about on discovery calls, is trying to narrow down what your priorities are and what would really fit in terms of your budget and the lifestyle you're looking for. So if that sounds like you can definitely reach out to me at my info below. I'd be more than happy to talk with you about your move over here and try to help you move in the right direction in finding where a location is that would be a great fit for you. All right, mistake number 3 is assuming that there's really great master plan communities around here. This is a very common thing that I hear, again, when I'm jumping on a discovery call with somebody. They're moving from a location where you've got all these new build master plan communities. You've got thousands of homes that were built around local amenities like swimming pools and clubhouses and sports courts, built around entire shopping centers. I often hear people say, hey, I want to buy a home where I can walk to the local restaurants and shopping centers and whatnot. Once you get over here to Seattle, it's going to feel very, very different. If you're used to a West Coast city or used to some older areas, it might not be as much of a shock to you. But if you're from areas like Tennessee or Texas or Arizona or Nevada or Florida, where you have these sprawling master plan communities, it's going to feel quite different over here. All the areas here are much older in general. So typically you don't have massive communities built around these amenities. Now there's a few exceptions. You can go to a place like the Issaquah Highlands, which is one of the best examples of this. This is a newer community, though construction is mostly complete. There's a little bit still going on for some new builds, but most of this was really built up in the last couple of decades. But you do have a lot of residential homes, townhomes and condos, and things that are built up around the local shopping center there in the Issaquah Highlands. So this is one of the more rare cases of this, where you have a residential home that is just down the street from shopping, entertaining, the local hospital, and lots of amenities nearby. However, there are not a lot of options like this, and the price point here is of course going to be quite a bit more. For a single family home, you're going to need to be around $2 million or more. For a townhome, you're going to be looking right around $1 million. But when you're in other cities around the metropolitan area, most of these are much older neighborhoods, and any local amenities are not going to be the clubhouses and pools, HOA maintained amenities. Most of them are just going to be local city parks or trails. A lot of the homes here are older on average, so a lot of these communities were put up without the master planning that we see in a lot of the new developments, especially in other parts of the US. You can find some older neighborhoods that are going to be built around some little local amenities. Maybe it has a clubhouse, maybe you'll find something with a pool. You can go to somewhere like the Mill Creek Country Club that was developed in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and you've got the local golf course, but you don't have a ton of other local amenities right within the community. So again, you may need to adjust your expectations of realizing you may not be able to find something that's a single family residential home that's ultra walkable to local businesses and amenities and has things like clubhouses, pools, and recreation centers nearby. You may be quite a bit more car dependent than you might have been from your previous location. Mistake number 4 that I see is people that wait to buy when they move over here. They look at the home prices here, realize they're really expensive, and say, if I just wait a little bit longer, I wait for interest rates to go down, I'll be able to afford more and be able to get into the area that I really like. The mistake that I often see is those people wait and then realize they got completely priced out. Now, there's a difference between waiting when you are financially in a place where you can buy and waiting because you just need more time to save up for a down payment, improve your credit score, different factors. Those are two different things. But if you're somebody that's financially in a position where you could buy and you decide, hey, I'm going to go over there and rent, I'm going to wait for it to get a little bit more affordable, I think you're going to be surprised in the fact that it's likely not going to get much more affordable around here. It's likely just going to continue to get more expensive. Now, real estate is completely unpredictable. As we all know, there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows, but for the most part, the Seattle area stays pretty stagnant. We haven't seen insane price drops. Now, we saw a little bit of negative movement when interest rates went from 3% to 8% in 2022 and 2023, but for the most part, the market has been on a steady rise since then. One thing that you really need to pay attention to with the real estate market and projecting future prices is the supply and demand. That's really what it comes down to. Is supply going to outpace demand, in which case those prices can start to come down? One thing about the Seattle metropolitan area that you need to know, there's two factors that weigh against this when it comes to buyers waiting for those prices to come down. One, we don't have a lot of land available here. So this goes into that master plan community thing that I talked about, where we don't have lots of just wide open land where developers are building and putting up tons of new homes. Again, you see that in southern parts of the US all over the place, but that is not the case here. So our inventory numbers are always low because we don't have the amount of new construction that other states do. So again, it's going to keep that supply much lower than maybe we would like to see, just because we don't have the options for new housing. The other part of that you need to know is we have a very, very strong job market over here. We are one of the very top tech hubs in the entire US. We're right there with New York and San Francisco, probably coming in at number 3. We are bringing in new AI jobs, new AI tech companies are coming into the area still. And so there is always going to be growth over here, and there's always going to be that demand for the highest paying paying jobs in the country. So you combine those two things, the lack of supply and lack of great inventory, with continuing to have some of the highest paying jobs in the country, it's going to insulate us a little bit more from those market changes. One other thing people say is, hey, I'll just wait for those interest rates to go down and I'll be able to buy at that point. Interest rates right now are at about 6.5% when I'm filming this video. One thing that you need to be aware of and think about, when those rates come down, let's say they come down from 6.5% to 5 or 5.5%, all of a sudden the demand in the market is going to explode again. We saw this in 2020, 2021, early 2022 when rates were 3 to 4.5%. We saw an insane amount of demand in this market. So many people wanted to move and be able to get into the next home. And now over the last couple of years when rates have been higher, we have a lot of pent-up demand and people just waiting for those rates to come down. When those rates come down, we are very likely going to see the return of insane bidding wars on homes, where previously in 2020 through 2022, homes were getting anywhere from 5 to 20 offers on each home. We could see a return of an ultra competitive environment if those rates come back down into the 5s. So that's something you need to think about, is you might save on that interest rate, but you're not going to save in the long term because you're going to pay a lot more for that house. So just keep that in mind. If you're moving over here with the plan of waiting for more affordable options for housing, there's a good chance you're not going to get that, and it's just going to continue to get more expensive. All right, mistake number 5 that I see is getting fooled by the summer weather. Very often people make their initial visit over here to explore if they want to move to this area in those summer months, whether it's because it's easier to get away from work and plan a vacation around it, or you're planning around the kids being out of school and that's the best time to come visit. Summer here is absolutely gorgeous. I'm not sure you can find a better summer anywhere in the US than here in the Pacific Northwest. Gorgeous temperatures, sunny skies, average temperatures in the summer months are in the upper 70s. So you're going to get a lot of days from the low 70s to really the mid 80s. That's the bulk of your summer, is 70 to 82, 83, 84 degrees is in that range. Every once in a while, we'll get a little bit of a heat wave that'll put us closer to 90 or so, but not very often. So those temperatures are just so easy to live with through the summer. They're warm enough where you can go and enjoy water recreation on the Puget Sound, at all of our many local lakes, and enjoy the outdoors, but it's not too hot where you're going to just be completely miserable hanging out outside. So it's absolutely perfect. Now, what that can do is it can fool you into thinking it's like that for a large portion of the year. The Seattle area is one of the cloudiest places you can certainly live in the US. About 62% of the days across the year are going to have a decent amount of cloud coverage here in Seattle. So while you've probably heard about how rainy Seattle is and it's super wet, that's really not the problem that people struggle with. Our rainfall actually meets the national average at about 38, 39 inches of rainfall per year. There's a lot of states that are in the 50 to 60 inches of rainfall. So the rainfall isn't really the issue here. It is the cloudy, gloomy skies that we see 8-9 months out of the year. So I always tell people, if you're somebody that's never lived in the Pacific Northwest or in another really cloudy location in the US, it's probably a good idea to make a visit not in the summer months as well, so you can get an idea, stay for a week and get an idea of that weather and make sure it's something you can deal with. Now, what people often find and what they decide is the trade-off is worth it. Even though you get the gloomy, cloudy, gray skies, the trade-off is none of the extreme weather or temperatures. Like I said, in the summer, very rarely gets above 90 or even reaches triple digits, is completely rare. In the winter months, the average daily highs are in the mid to upper 40s. So yeah, we can certainly get stretches below freezing and we'll get a little bit of snow here and there, but we only average 5 inches of snow a year. This past winter, I don't think we got any snow. I think we got a light dusting for a day just this past winter. However, snow for the most part is not an issue for you over here. You might get one smaller snowstorm a year where you get maybe 4 to 7 inches over a 2 to 3 day period. Everything will shut down for that time period because they don't have the plows and are not really prepared for snow around here, but it'll melt pretty quickly in a few days and then everything will be back to normal. For the most part, snow will not affect you over here. It's also just a mild climate in general with those temperatures, and we don't have, people are moving from the southeast where they're dealing with hurricanes or the Midwest where they're dealing with tornadoes. For the most part over here, it's pretty mild and a pretty easy climate to deal with. So that is the trade-off, but you do need to experience those cloudy, gloomy days to make sure it's something you're willing to live with. All right, well, these are the top 5 mistakes, like I said, that people make when they're moving over here. And like I said, I've helped people relocate here very heavily over the last handful of years and love doing it and really love going through these things with people and helping them figure out if this is the right location for them to move to and where that best spot might be in the Seattle metropolitan area that would fit your lifestyle the best. So if that sounds like you and you're somebody considering a move over here and want to talk further about out if it's the right move and where the right move might be, feel free to reach out to me at my info below. Would be more than happy to chat with you and guide you along the right direction. Thanks for watching this one.